Secure. Duane Carter stepped out of his matte black Range Rover, adjusting the cuffs of his designer blazer. The valet nodded, recognizing him from his frequent visits to Atlanta's most exclusive spots. The city belonged to him. At least, that's how it felt. Money, power, women. Duane had all of it. Or so he thought. The club was alive, the bass heavy, the air thick with expensive cologne and ambition. Duane moved through the crowd with confidence, dapping up familiar faces, flashing a grin at the women eyeing him like a prize. He knew the game. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A quick glance at the screen, Keisha. He smirked but ignored it. She'd be mad, but she'd get over it. They always did. He slid into the VIP section, where his right-hand man, Dre, was already posted up with a bottle of Remy Martin. "Boy, you stay late," Dre joked, pouring Duane a drink. "You know me?" Duane said, sinking into the leather couch. "Gotta make an entrance." Dre shook his head. "One day, your ass gonna realize all this ain't the flex you think it is." Duane laughed, brushing off Dre's words. "Man, please. I'm good." Then he saw her. Janelle Robinson. She wasn't like the women he usually entertained. No thirst in her eyes, no forced seduction in her posture, just confidence. She sat at the bar, sipping a cocktail, her deep brown skin glowing under the low lights. Dre caught Duane staring and chuckled. "Oh, so that's the vibe tonight?" Duane nodded. "That's the vibe." He walked over, smooth and intentional. "What's a queen like you doing in a place like this?" Janelle barely looked up. "Enjoying my drink." Damn, no smile, no flirtation. Just facts. He smirked, intrigued. "Duane," he said, extending his hand. She gave him a glance, then shook it briefly. "Janelle. That's a beautiful name." She took another sip. "I know." Duane chuckled. "Oh, so you one of those?" "One of what?" "Women who make a man work for a simple conversation." Janelle turned to face him fully now. "No, I'm a woman who don't entertain everybody just 'cause they got money and a fresh lineup." The response caught Duane off guard. He wasn't used to that. Women usually folded under the weight of his presence, eager to be chosen. But Janelle, she wasn't impressed. "I respect that," he said, leaning on the bar. "So what does impress you?" She finally smiled, just a little. "Consistency." Duane nodded, acting like he understood, but deep down, he wasn't sure if he did. Consistency wasn't his strong suit. "You always this tough?" he asked, watching her. Janelle sipped her drink. "Only with men who ain't used to real women." That hit different. For the first time in a long time, Duane felt like he might have met his match. Duane wasn't used to this. Most women would have been in his phone by now, sending heart eye emojis, waiting on him to set up the next move. But Janelle? She had walked away from the bar that night with nothing but a casual, "Nice meeting you." No number, no Instagram, no, "Hit me up when you get home." And that shit was bothering him. He sat in his condo, scrolling through his phone, debating if he should hit up one of his usuals. Keisha had already texted 3 times, but he wasn't in the mood. Something about Janelle had him locked in, and it pissed him off. Dre's voice echoed in his head from last night. "One day, your ass gonna realize all this ain't the flex you think it is." Duane shook it off. "Man, fuck that. I'm still him." But something in him knew Janelle was different. A few days later, he ran into her again, this time at a Black-owned coffee shop on Edgewood. No club lights, no distractions. Just Janelle in a simple but fly fit. Jeans, heels, and a fitted sweater that made him take a deep breath before stepping up. "Twice in 1 week? You sure you ain't following me?" He joked, flashing that signature smile. Janelle glanced up from her laptop, unimpressed. "Atlanta small." Duane pulled up a chair without asking. "You always this cold?" She smirked. You always this persistent? He chuckled, nodding. When I see something worth the effort. Janelle closed her laptop and leaned back. And what exactly do you think is worth the effort? He studied her, knowing this was a test. You tell me. She crossed her legs, watching him. Most men chase women because they want to win them. Like we a damn prize to be claimed. But real love ain't about winning, it's about building. So I gotta ask, you chasing me 'cause you intrigued? Or 'cause you think I'm a challenge? That question hit him in the chest. Duane had never thought about it like that. He'd always been about the chase, the thrill, the ego boost of getting what other men couldn't. But was that all this was? He looked at her, really looked at her, then said the realest thing he had in a while. I don't know yet. Janelle nodded, seemingly satisfied with that answer. At least you honest. They sat in silence for a second. Then she grabbed a napkin, pulled out a pen, and scribbled something down. Her number. She slid it across the table and stood up. Call me when you figure it out. And just like that, she walked away, leaving Duane with nothing but a number, a question he couldn't shake, and a feeling he hadn't felt in years. Duane stared at the number on the napkin for damn near an hour before finally locking it into his phone. He wasn't the type to hesitate, but Janelle had him second-guessing himself. Something about her made him feel like he couldn't come at her with the same old game. He finally hit her up. Duane. So, I figured it out. Janelle. Oh yeah. Duane. Yeah. I don't want to win you. I want to get to know you. Janelle. Good answer. Let's see if your actions match your words. She hit him with a time and place. Friday night, 7 p.m. No details, no hints, just instructions. And for the first time in a long time, Duane felt like he was the one being pursued. Only Janelle wasn't chasing him. She was testing him. When Duane pulled up to the address she sent, he expected a fancy restaurant, maybe a lounge, but instead, he found himself outside a small low-key house in West End. He checked the address again. This the spot? Knocking on the door, he was met with the sound of laughter, loud music, and the unmistakable smell of chicken wings. When the door swung open, Janelle stood there in a pair of fitted joggers and a cropped hoodie, looking fine as hell. You overdressed? She smirked, eyeing his fresh button-up and designer sneakers. Duane looked past her and saw a living room full of people. Her people. Cards on the table, drinks in hand, a whole vibe. This a game night? He asked. Janelle grinned. You ain't scared, are you? He chuckled. Nah, I'm just trying to figure out how I went from date night to family reunion. Janelle leaned against the doorframe. Look, any man can take me to a restaurant and act charming for 2 hours. But if you really trying to know me, you gotta know my world. Duane respected it. A woman like Janelle wasn't impressed by small talk over steak dinners. She wanted real, so he stepped inside. Janelle introduced him to her friends, tight-knit, funny, and quick with the jokes. Within 10 minutes, he was already getting roasted. Oh, you the one who got Janelle actually texting back? One of the women, Tamika, teased. Boy, you look nervous. You good? Another dude, Marcus, laughed. Duane held his own, throwing jokes right back, but he wasn't stupid. He knew this was a test. Janelle was watching, waiting to see if he could handle himself in her world. Then came the spades game. Duane partnered up with Janelle, but before they even started, she hit him with a serious look. Don't renege. I will fight you. He laughed. Damn, that's serious? Janelle didn't smile. Yes. That's when he knew. This was make or break. By the end of the night, Duane had passed, not just with Janelle, but with her people. He played his hand right, literally and figuratively. As folks started leaving, Janelle walked him to the door. You held your own tonight. He smirked. I do more than just show up. She studied him for a second, then nodded. We'll see. And just like that, she had him hooked. Duane had never been tested like that before. Women usually wanted to impress him, not the other way around. But Janelle, she was different. And the fact that he had passed her little game night initiation made him feel like he had just unlocked a new level. But one good night didn't mean he had her. If anything, it just meant he had to work harder. A few days passed before he heard from Janelle again. Just as he was about to text her, his phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen. He let it ring twice before answering, keeping his voice smooth. What's up? You busy? She asked. Nah, just chillin'. What's good? She hesitated. Just needed someone to talk to. That threw him off. He wasn't used to women calling just to talk. Usually they hit him up when they wanted something. Attention, money, a good time. But Janelle? She sounded tired. What's on your mind? He asked, settling into his couch. She sighed. You ever feel like you do everything right and it's still not enough? Duane frowned. What you mean? Janelle hesitated again, but then she let it out. I was engaged once. That caught him off guard. Word? Yeah, we were together for 5 years. Thought I was gonna marry that man. Duane stayed quiet, letting her talk. I gave him everything, she continued. Held him down when he didn't have shit, supported his dreams, made sure he was good, and in the end, he still played me. Duane ran a hand over his beard. Damn. Yeah. She let out a bitter laugh. So now, when a man tells me he's different, I don't believe it. I can't. Not until he proves it. He heard the unspoken words in her voice. Don't waste my time. Duane exhaled. I feel you. But let me ask you this. How a man's supposed to prove himself if you already got a wall up? Janelle was quiet for a moment. Maybe the right man won't see it as a wall. Maybe he'll see it as a door that just needs the right key. That hit deep. For once, Duane wasn't thinking about what he wanted. He was thinking about what she needed. And for the first time in a long time, he wanted to be the man who figured out the key. Duane couldn't shake that late-night conversation with Janelle. Her words sat heavy in his mind. Maybe the right man won't see it as a wall. Maybe he'll see it as a door that just needs the right key. Most women he dealt with never made him think that deep. They didn't require more from him than what he was used to giving. Charm, money, attention when he felt like it. But Janelle was testing him in a way that made him uncomfortable. And that's exactly why he couldn't leave her alone. The next evening, Duane pulled up to Janelle's spot unannounced. He wasn't the type to chase, but something told him she needed to see that he wasn't just about words. When she opened the door, she raised an eyebrow. You lost? He smirked. Nah, just figured you might need some company. Janelle hesitated for a second, then stepped aside to let him in. You always just pull up on women like this? Nah, he admitted. You different. She studied him for a moment, then motioned toward the couch. Well, since you here, make yourself useful. I'm cooking. Duane followed her into the kitchen, surprised. Most women would have tried to impress him with takeout or something quick. But Janelle was in her element. Hair tied up, standing over the stove, seasoning chicken like somebody's auntie. You cook like this all the time? He asked, leaning against the counter. Janelle smirked. Yeah, I don't survive off DoorDash like you. He chuckled. Aight, you got jokes? But real talk, you didn't have to do all this? I didn't, she said simply. But if you really trying to get to know me, then you need to see me in my space. Duane nodded, respecting it. Something about this felt normal. No games, no trying to impress each other. Just real life. Over dinner, the conversation got deeper. You ever been in love? Janelle asked, sipping her wine. Duane shrugged. I thought I was. But looking back, I think I was just in love with the idea of love. Janelle nodded like she understood. What changed? He ran a hand over his beard. Honestly, you got me thinking about shit I never thought about before. She raised an eyebrow. Like what? He exhaled. Like what it really means to care about a woman. Not just have one, but really see her. Janelle's expression softened. And what do you see when you look at me? Duane held her gaze, choosing his words carefully. I see a woman who knows her worth, who refuses to settle, who's been hurt but still wants something real. For the first time, she looked like he had caught her off guard. Janelle put her glass down, her voice softer now. And what do you want from me, Duane? He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. I don't want nothing from you. I want to build with you. A slow smile spread across her lips. Good answer. And just like that, Duane knew. He had just unlocked another level. Duane had been with a lot of women, but none of them had ever made him work for their presence like Janelle did. Most of the time, he played the game his way. Smooth talk, good sex, and just enough attention to keep them interested. But Janelle wasn't interested in games. She was interested in effort. A week had passed since that dinner at her place, and Duane had been intentional about keeping the momentum. No waiting 3 days to text. No playing it cool like he wasn't all in. He called, checked in, and made plans. One night he called her just to talk. You good? Yeah, just a long day. You eat yet? Not yet. Bet. I'll pull up with something. She paused. You don't have to do that. That's the difference, though, Duane thought. I don't have to. I want to. Just be ready when I get there, he said, hanging up before she could protest. An hour later, he knocked on her door with takeout from her favorite Caribbean spot. She opened up, looking a little surprised. You really brought me food? He smirked. Damn, you sound shocked. She stepped aside, letting him in. I'm just not used to this. He set the food down and looked at her. Then get used to it. Janelle studied him for a second before shaking her head with a small smile. You full of surprises, Duane. Nah, he said. I'm just finally doing shit the right way. And he meant that. After they ate, they sat on her couch, music playing low in the background. Janelle curled up next to him, her guard just a little lower than before. You ever think about why men don't always show up like this? She asked. He glanced at her. What you mean? I mean, why don't more men understand that a woman's love is tied to how safe she feels? That when we start pulling away, it's not because we don't want you, but because we don't feel seen. Duane thought about that. Real talk, he said. Most men never been taught that shit. We grow up thinking a woman pulling away means she trying to play us. We don't realize she's protecting herself. Janelle nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. A good woman's sexual desire is deeply tied to her emotional security. If she feels neglected emotionally, she won't crave intimacy because she cannot trust what doesn't feel safe. When she withholds affection, it's not rejection, but a signal that parts of her are being ignored. Duane let those words sink in. A woman cannot feel both desired and like an afterthought. She continued. Her passion fades when she has to constantly reach for attention. Unlike women who give in for superficial reasons, a truly valuable partner is drawn to emotional connection, not just money or looks. If a man neglects her feelings, he builds walls between them, and if he doesn't put in the effort to break them down, he risks being shut out for good. Duane exhaled. That's real. Janelle looked up at him. So tell me, Duane, do you want me or do you want to earn me? He met her gaze, no hesitation. I want to earn you. For the first time since they met, Janelle let herself believe him, Duane wasn't used to this kind of pace. His relationships, if you could call them that, had always followed the same script. Meet a woman, impress her, take her out, sleep with her, and keep it moving until one of them got bored. But with Janelle, things were different. She wasn't rushing to be in his bed. She was testing his consistency, waiting to see if he would slip into old patterns. And the crazy part? He didn't even want to. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about how fast he could get a woman to trust him physically. He was thinking about how long he could make her trust him emotionally. And that was new for him. "You sure you like this girl?" Dre asked, leaning back in the booth at their usual barbershop hangout. Duane shot him a look. "What kind of question is that?" Dre smirked. "The kind a man asks when his homeboy's suddenly acting like he in a damn romance movie." The other guys laughed, but Duane wasn't fazed. "So 'cause I ain't moving reckless, now I'm soft." "Nah," Dre said. "But let's be real, this ain't you, D. You the dude who don't get got. And Janelle, she got you thinking." Duane didn't deny it. "Yeah, and?" Dre shook his head. "I'm just saying, be careful. Women like her don't just let a man in easy. She gon' make you work. And you ain't never had to work before. You ready for that?" Duane leaned forward. "Maybe I need to work for something real for once." The barbershop went quiet for a second. Dre studied him before nodding. "Aight then. Just don't lose yourself in it." That night, Duane pulled up to Janelle's job to surprise her. Nothing major. Just wanted to check in. She was locking up when she saw him. "Duane, what are you doing here?" He shrugged. "Thought you might want some company." Janelle eyed him suspiciously. "You ain't the type to just show up." He smirked. "Maybe I'm changing." She studied him for a moment, then shook her head with a small smile. "You really trying to prove yourself, huh?" "I ain't trying to prove myself," he said. "I'm just trying to be the man you actually believe in." That shut her up. For a woman who had built walls around her heart, trust was earned in small moments, not big gestures. And right now, Duane was stacking those moments up one by one. As they walked to her car, Janelle glanced over at him. "You serious about this, huh?" He met her gaze. "Yeah, I am." And this time, she didn't question it. Duane had always been the type to lead. He knew how to take control of situations, how to move with confidence. But with Janelle, it wasn't about control, it was about patience. She wasn't the kind of woman to open up just because a man was consistent for a few weeks. She had been hurt before, and trust wasn't something she gave lightly, but Duane was willing to put in the work. One night, Janelle called him. It wasn't late, but her voice had that tired edge to it, like she had been carrying something heavy all day. "You good?" Duane asked. She sighed. "Yeah, just long day. Want to talk about it?" Another pause. "Not over the phone." That's all he needed to hear. "I'm on my way." When she let him into her apartment, she looked different. Not in a bad way, just real. No makeup, hair wrapped up, oversized hoodie and shorts. Duane liked this version of her even more. "Want to tell me what's up?" he asked, sitting on the couch. Janelle hesitated, then sat down next to him, tucking her legs under herself. "It's stupid." "Nah," he said. "If it's on your mind, it ain't stupid." She stared at the floor for a second. "Sometimes I get scared." Duane frowned. "Of what?" She exhaled. "Of feeling too much, of letting my guard down just to get hurt again. I spent so much time building myself up after my last relationship, I don't even know if I remember how to lean on somebody." Duane nodded, letting her words sink in. "Being strong all the time gets exhausting, huh?" he asked. Janelle's eyes met his. "Yeah." For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Duane reached out, gently taking her hand. "You ain't gotta be strong with me all the time. I see you." She squeezed his hand, like she was holding on to something bigger than just his touch. Like she was holding on to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this time was different. That night, they didn't do anything but sit there, her head resting against his chest as music played low in the background. No pressure, no expectations, just being. And for the first time, Janelle let herself be held. Duane knew in that moment, this wasn't just about proving himself to her anymore. It was about showing her that real love don't feel like a burden. It feels safe. Duane had made up his mind. If he was serious about Janelle, he had to stop moving like every other dude she had dealt with. Talking was easy, but action was what separated men from boys. And right now, she needed to see his intentions, not just hear them. The next weekend, Duane surprised Janelle by pulling up to her job at closing time. "You again?" she teased, locking the door behind her. He smirked. "Yeah, me again. Figured you could use a ride home." Janelle eyed him. "I have a car, you know." "I know," he said, "but I still want to be the man that makes shit easier for you." For the first time, she looked like she didn't have a quick comeback. Instead, she just shook her head with a small smile and walked to his car. On the drive back, the conversation took a turn. "You ever think about the kind of man you want to be?" Janelle asked. Duane glanced over at her. "What you mean?" "I mean, do you want to be the kind of man who just has a woman, or the kind that actually keeps one?" He let that question sit for a second. "I ain't gonna lie," he admitted. "Most of my life, I moved like the first type, but I'm trying to be the second." Janelle studied him. "And what's different now?" He didn't hesitate. "You?" She looked away, but he caught the way her lips curved up just a little. For the first time, Duane knew. He was getting somewhere. Over the next few weeks, Janelle started testing him in little ways. Would he call when he said he would? Would he make time even when he was busy? Would he show up without expecting anything in return? And Duane. He passed every test without even realizing she was testing him. Because for once, he wasn't just playing the game. He was playing for keeps. Duane had put in the work, and Janelle saw it. No disappearing acts, no mixed signals, no acting interested. One day and distant the next. He showed up, stayed present, and moved like a man who knew what he wanted. And that made Janelle take him seriously. One night, they were chilling at his spot, a bottle of wine open between them. Music played low, and the energy between them was different. Heavier, like something needed to be said. Janelle set her glass down. "So, what are we doing, Duane?" He leaned back on the couch. "You tell me." She raised an eyebrow. "Don't play that game with me. You've been moving like you want something real, but I need to hear it." Duane exhaled, then looked her dead in the eye. "I want you, Janelle. I ain't out here playing. I want this to be real." She searched his face for any signs of doubt. "And what does real look like to you?" He didn't hesitate. "Real means I ain't out here entertaining nobody else. Real means I show up, no matter what. Real means we build, not just vibe." Janelle let those words settle, then nodded. "Aight, we'll see." It wasn't a full yes, but it wasn't a no either. And Duane knew. She was watching to see if his actions would match his words. A few days later, temptation came knocking. An old flame, Kiana, slid into his DMS. "Damn, you been ghost. Thought we had fun last time we linked. I've been busy or booed up. Both. That should have been the end of it, but Kiana wasn't the type to let shit go. Come on, Duane. You know how we do. One last time for old time's sake?" Old Duane might have entertained it, might have let the ego boost get to him. But this Duane? Nah, I'm good. Take care. And just like that, he shut the door on his old ways. When he saw Janelle that night, he looked at her differently, not as just some woman he was pursuing, but as his woman. Janelle peeped the shift. What's that look for? Duane smirked. Just thinking how I ain't trying to mess this up. She studied him for a moment. Good. Then don't. And just like that, Duane knew. He was all in. Duane had locked in, but locking in was the easy part. Keeping that same energy when things got real, that's where most men fumbled. And right now, Janelle was watching to see if he was built for this, or just another dude running game. It was a Friday night, and Duane had plans with Janelle. Nothing big, just a chill night, some takeout, and a movie at his place. But Dre and the crew hit him up last minute. We at Lux tonight. Pull up, bottles on deck, we celebrating. Lux was the spot, the kind of place where bad decisions were easy to make. Old Duane would have said, bet, I'm on the way. But new Duane? Can't. Got plans. Dre. Damn, she got you on lock already? Aunt. Next thing we know, you gonna be looking at wedding rings. Duane smirked, shaking his head. Niggas always think commitment mean you weak, he muttered to himself. He didn't even bother responding. Instead, he hit up Janelle. You still good for tonight? Yeah, just got off. I'll be at your place in 30. And just like that, he knew he made the right call. When Janelle pulled up, she was already reading his energy. What's up with you? She asked, kicking off her shoes. Duane shook his head, grabbing her a drink. Dre and them was trying to get me out tonight. She took the glass. And you didn't go? Nah. Had plans with you? Janelle raised an eyebrow. You sure you ain't want to be out in the club with a bunch of half-naked women throwing themselves at you? He smirked. What I look like fumbling a diamond for a bunch of rhinestones. Janelle sipped her drink, but he caught the way her lips curled up like she was trying not to smile. Good answer, she muttered. Damn right it was. Later that night, they were laid up, watching TV, when Janelle hit him with a real question. You ever think about what makes a man ready for a real relationship? Duane thought on it. Yeah, he said. A man's ready when he stops moving like he need options. Janelle turned to him. Explain. He met her gaze. A man who still need attention from every woman he meets? He ain't ready. A man who need constant validation from outside his relationship? He ain't ready. But a man who know his worth, who ain't gotta prove shit to nobody? That's the man who can really build something solid. Janelle studied him for a second. Then, without saying a word, she kissed him. Slow, deep, like she was finally seeing him for real. Duane wasn't just talking. He understood the assignment. Duane had passed Janelle's test so far, but he knew better than to think the game was over. Women didn't just fall for words, they fell for consistency. And the moment a man got too comfortable, that's when shit started falling apart. He wasn't about to let that happen. One night, Duane was at Janelle's spot when his phone started buzzing. It was his ex, Chantel. Janelle glanced at the screen. You gonna answer that? Duane hit decline without hesitation. Nope, Janelle smirked. Damn, just like that? He met her gaze. Yeah, 'cause I know what she on and I ain't on that no more. Janelle sipped her wine, clearly satisfied with the response. But Duane knew this wasn't just about the call. It was about whether he could handle his own without her having to check him. A weak man would have fumbled the moment. But Duane, he knew the assignment. Later that night, as they were laid up watching TV, Janelle hit him with a real one. You ever been in love? Duane exhaled, rubbing his chin. I thought I was. But looking back, nah. I was just in deep habit with people. Janelle nodded slowly. So what does love mean to you? He turned to face her. Love ain't just words. It's what you do when it ain't easy. It's showing up when shit ain't fun no more. It's choosing somebody even when options exist. Janelle held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded. That's real. She didn't say, I love you. She didn't need to. But the way she looked at him, he knew he was getting closer. The next day, Duane was out grabbing lunch when Dre hit him up. Yo, saw Chantel last night. She was asking about you. And she said she missed you. Said she want to talk. Duane didn't even hesitate. Tell her I'm good. Ain't nothing to talk about. Old Duane might have entertained that conversation just for the ego boost. But this Duane, he wasn't about to fumble a real one for some old bullshit. That night, when Duane saw Janelle, she studied him for a moment. You look different, she said. He smirked. How so? I don't know. More sure. He leaned in, brushing his lips against hers. That's 'cause I am. Janelle wasn't used to feeling safe with a man, but Duane, he was making damn sure she never had to question where she stood. Duane had been solid. He showed up, stayed consistent, and proved that he wasn't like the dudes Janelle had dealt with before. But just when things felt smooth, the past came knocking. And the thing about the past, it don't need permission to fuck up your present. Duane was at work when he got the text. Unknown number. We need to talk. Call me. He frowned, staring at the screen. The number wasn't saved, but something about it felt familiar. Before he could overthink it, another message came through. Unknown number. It's Shayla. His stomach tightened. Shayla. That was a name he hadn't heard in almost a year. His ex-fiancée. That night, Duane was quieter than usual. He and Janelle were at her place, watching a movie, but his mind wasn't in it. Janelle noticed. You good? She asked. Duane hesitated. Yeah, just a long day. She studied him. That's it? He nodded, but he could tell she wasn't fully buying it. Janelle wasn't the type to press. She believed in letting a man speak when he was ready, but that didn't mean she wasn't watching. Later that night, while Janelle was in the shower, Duane picked up his phone and stared at the message again. Shayla, the woman he thought he was going to marry, the one who left him when things got rough. Why the fuck was she reaching out now? His thumb hovered over the call button. He shouldn't, but something in him needed to hear what she had to say. Before he could talk himself out of it, he hit call. Duane. Her voice hit him like a memory he wasn't ready for. Software familiar. What do you want, Shayla? He asked, keeping his tone flat. I heard you were seeing someone, and I realized I never really gave you closure. Duane clenched his jaw. Closure? He let out a dry laugh. You walked away, Shayla. What more is there to say? She sighed. I made a mistake. Silence. Then she said the one thing that could fuck up everything. I still love you. Duane exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. This question mark. This was a test he wasn't expecting. Duane wasn't a fool. He knew how this game went. Whenever a man started moving right, building something real, the past always found a way to pull up. And Shayla? She was the type of woman who knew exactly when to strike. But the real question was he the same Duane she left behind? I still love you. Those words hung in the air, heavy as hell. Duane exhaled, gripping the phone tighter. Nam, you loved me when it was convenient. When shit got hard, you left. Shayla's voice softened. I was scared, Duane. I thought we weren't ready. And now that I'm happy with someone else, you suddenly realize you made a mistake? Silence. Then, I just needed you to know how I feel. Duane closed his eyes. A year ago, those words would have sent him running back, would have had him questioning everything, but now he knew better. You knowing that I've moved on is all the closure you need, he said. And just like that, he ended the call. When Duane stepped back into the bedroom, Janelle was sitting up in bed, scrolling on her phone. She looked up at him, her expression unreadable. You good? She asked. Duane nodded. Yeah? She tilted her head slightly. You sure? She wasn't pressing, yet. But Duane wasn't about to play dumb. He sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed the back of his neck. That was my ex. Janelle raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet. Said she still loves me? Janelle let out a small setting her phone down. And what did you say? He turned to face her. I told her I've moved on. Janelle nodded slowly, then locked eyes with him. Good. Nothing more. Nothing less. Just good. That's when Duane knew. Janelle wasn't the type to throw a fit or get insecure. She was watching, and if he ever gave her a reason to doubt him, she'd be gone just as quick as Shayla was. The next morning, Duane woke up to Janelle cooking breakfast. She was moving like normal, but he could feel something unspoken in the air. Walking up behind her, he wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her neck. I know the past has a way of messing with shit, he murmured, but I ain't gonna fumble what we got. Janelle turned off the stove and turned to face him. I hear you, but do you believe me? She studied him for a long second before nodding. I will. And that was all Duane needed to hear. Duane had shut the door on his past, but the test wasn't over. A woman like Janelle didn't just listen to words, she watched actions. And if there was one thing Duane understood, it was that a man proves himself in how he moves, not just in what he says. This was his time to show her. Over the next week, things between them felt different. Janelle wasn't pulling away, but Duane could tell she was more aware. Not clingy, not insecure, just watching. One night while they were out at dinner, he caught her staring at him over her wine glass. What's on your mind? He asked. Janelle swirled her drink before answering. Just wondering if you're really built for this? Duane raised an eyebrow. For what? She set her glass down. For a real relationship. For something that lasts. You ever had that before? He shook his head. Not like this. Janelle leaned back in her seat, studying him. Then how do you know you won't fumble it? Duane exhaled, tapping his fingers against the table. Because for the first time in my life, I ain't leaving myself a backup plan. Janelle's lips curled up just slightly. Good answer. The very next night, Duane was at the gym when his phone buzzed. Shayla, I respect that you moved on, but can we just talk one last time? For real this time? Duane stared at the message. He already knew what it was. Unfinished business. Old emotions trying to creep back in. One last chance for her to see if she still had a grip on him. He could ignore it. Or he could end it for good. Without overthinking, he sent one final message. Duane, no need to talk. Take care of yourself. Then, he blocked her number. And just like that, the past had no way to reach him anymore. That night, when he pulled up at Janelle's place, she was already at the door waiting. She didn't say anything, just looked at him, then reached for his phone. Duane smirked. Checking up on me? Janelle tapped his screen, saw the blocked number and handed it back. Nah, just making sure you understand. I do. Janelle stepped closer, running her fingers up his chest. Then show me. Duane didn't need to be told twice. And this time, when he touched her, kissed her, made love to her, it wasn't just about desire, it was about trust, and that was something no other woman had ever had from him before. Duane was in his zone. Janelle was feeling him in a way she hadn't before. He had handled his past, showed up for her, and proved that he was about what he said. But life had a funny way of testing a man right when he got comfortable, and Duane was about to learn that every level requires a new level of discipline. Duane was at the shop, lining up a client when Dre slid into the chair next to him, scrolling through his phone. "You sure about Shorty?" Dre asked, not looking up. Duane smirked. "You still on that?" "I'm just saying. She ever tell you about her ex?" Duane paused mid-cut. "What about him?" Dre finally looked up. "Nigga back in town." Duane tightened his grip on the clippers. And I heard he ain't the type to let shit go easy." Duane exhaled through his nose. He wasn't the jealous type, but he also wasn't stupid. If a man was coming back around his woman, he needed to be ready. That night, Janelle was at Duane's spot, curled up on the couch when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and let out a frustrated sigh. Duane caught it immediately. "Who is it?" Janelle hesitated, then turned the phone toward him. "Aaron, we need to talk." Duane's expression didn't change, but inside, he felt that familiar heat rising. He nodded toward the phone. "You hitting him back?" Janelle locked the screen and set it down. "Nope." Duane watched her for a beat. "You sure?" Janelle met his gaze. "I don't have nothing to say to him." And just like that, Duane's chest eased. Janelle wasn't playing both sides. She wasn't entertaining old ghosts. She was choosing him. The next day, Duane was pulling up to Janelle's place when he spotted him. Aaron, tall, built like he spent his whole life in the gym, standing by her door like he had a right to be there. Duane parked, took a breath, and stepped out. Aaron turned, eyes narrowing as Duane approached. "You must be Duane." Duane didn't stop moving. "And you must be the nigga who don't understand when he's been replaced." Aaron smirked. "Funny, I just wanted to talk to her." Duane stepped up, keeping his voice even. "She don't want to talk. So what we really doing here?" Aaron sized him up, like he was waiting for Duane to fold. But Duane? He just stared back, unbothered. Because a man secure in his spot don't need to flex. He just is. Aaron finally exhaled, shaking his head. "I see what's up." "Good," Duane said. "Now be on your way." And just like that, the past lost again. When Duane stepped inside, Janelle was watching from the window. "You saw that?" he asked. She nodded. He studied her. "And?" Janelle stepped up, resting her hands on his chest. "And you just proved something." Duane smirked. "What's that?" Janelle leaned up, lips brushing his. "That I finally got a man who ain't afraid to claim what's his." And that night, she showed him just how much she appreciated that. Duane had handled business. He shut down the past, let it be known where he stood, and didn't let jealousy turn him into a fool. Janelle was watching, and she saw everything. But just because you pass one test doesn't mean the game is over. A real relationship? It's about how a man moves every day, not just when things get tense. And Duane was about to find out that loving a woman like Janelle wasn't just about keeping her. It was about growing with her. One night, Janelle was curled up in bed, scrolling through her phone. Duane had just gotten out of the shower, towel around his waist, looking at a few missed calls from Doctor. He sat down next to her, rubbing his hands over his face. "You good?" Janelle asked. "Yeah, just a long day." Janelle hummed but didn't say much. Duane glanced at her. "You straight?" She nodded, still scrolling. Mm-mm. He could tell something was off, but she wasn't saying it. And that's where most men fuck up. They wait for a woman to spell it out instead of paying attention. Duane sighed, stretched, then finally asked, "All right, what's on your mind?" Janelle paused, looking at him. "You sure you want to know?" Duane smirked. "That bad?" Janelle set her phone down. "It's not bad. It's just, I notice things." "Like what?" Janelle tilted her head. Like how you handle big things like a man, but you get comfortable with the little things. Duane frowned. What you mean? Janelle exhaled. You don't check in as much as you used to. You used to text me good morning before I even opened my eyes. You'd ask me how my day was going before I had to bring it up. She shrugged. It's small, but I notice. Duane let that sink in. He wasn't messing up, but he was slipping. And the thing about a real woman, she don't beg for effort. She just starts matching your energy. And that's how men lose good women without even realizing it. Duane could have brushed it off. Told her she was overthinking or acted like it wasn't a big deal, but he wasn't stupid. He leaned in, running a hand down her thigh. I hear you. Janelle searched his face. Yeah? Yeah. And I'ma fix that. Janelle held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. She didn't need a long speech. She didn't need begging. She just needed to know that he heard her. And that's what separated boys from men. The next morning, before Janelle even woke up, Duane sent her a text. Duane, good morning, beautiful. Hope you slept good. Let me know what you need from me today. Janelle smiled when she read it. And that night, she showed him exactly how much that effort meant. Duane was locked in now. He had made his choice, and Janelle was feeling it. But see, here's the thing. When a man steps up, life don't just sit back and clap for him. It tests him. And this time, the test wasn't about Janelle. It was about everything else trying to pull him away from being the man he was becoming. Because a good woman doesn't just need love. She needs presence. And Duane was about to learn that firsthand. Duane was at the shop when Dre walked in, looking like he had something to say. What's good? Duane asked, lining up a client. Dre leaned against the counter. Got an opportunity for you? Duane didn't look up. Yeah? Big money, easy work. Now Duane did look up. Dre's tone had that old energy, the kind that meant the money wasn't coming from the cleanest sources. Duane put the clippers down. I told you, I'm off that. Dre smirked. Nigga, it's just a side hustle. Some quick cash, nothing messy. Duane shook his head. I don't need quick cash. Dre scoffed. Yeah, till you do. You really think just cutting heads gonna keep you on top? Duane exhaled, rubbing his jaw. A year ago, he might have jumped on this. Hell, 6 months ago, he might have at least thought about it. But now, he had too much to lose. That night, Duane was at Janelle's spot, but his mind was still at the shop. Janelle noticed. You seem off, she said, stretching out on the couch. Duane sighed. Dre on some bullshit. Janelle raised an eyebrow. He trying to pull you back in? Duane nodded. Janelle watched him for a second, then said something that hit him different. You know a man can't serve two masters, right? Duane frowned. What you mean? Janelle sat up. I mean, you either building a life with me or playing in the streets. You can't do both. Duane exhaled, nodding. I know. Janelle tilted her head. Do you? She wasn't asking on some dramatic, insecure woman type shit. She was asking because a woman needs to know where her man's head is at. And that's when Duane knew. This wasn't just about saying no to Dre. It was about making sure he never even considered that life again. The next day, Dre called. Duane let it ring. Then, he blocked the number. And just like that, he made a choice. Not just for Janelle, for himself. That night, when Duane pulled Janelle close, she could feel the shift. You feel different, she murmured. Duane smirked. That's 'cause I am. Janelle searched his face, then nodded. And just like that, she let her walls drop a little more. Because when a man moves with certainty, a good woman trusts him more. And that trust? that turns into something dangerous when she finally feels safe enough to give him everything. Duane had made his choice. He shut down Dre's offer, cut off that old life, and locked in with Janelle. But there was one thing left unfinished. Dre. Because real men, they might clash, they might fall out, but if the bond was real, they found their way back. And Duane wasn't about to let years of loyalty go out like that over some bullshit. A week passed, and Duane hadn't heard from Dre. No calls, no texts, no dropping by the shop. It was strange. They had been tight since forever, and now it was like Dre had disappeared. Janelle noticed one night while they were eating dinner. "You talked to Dre yet?" Duane shook his head. "He's salty." Janelle nodded. "Let him be. He'll come around." Duane exhaled, stabbing his fork into his plate. "Yeah, I just ain't trying to lose my nigga over this." Janelle gave him a look. "Then fix it." And that's all Duane needed to hear. Duane pulled up to Dre's spot the next evening. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, harder. Finally, the door swung open. Dre stood there, shirt off, a blunt tucked behind his ear, looking like he was expecting somebody else. He frowned. "Oh, that all you gotta say?" Duane asked, stepping inside. Dre shut the door, shaking his head. "Man, what you want?" Duane crossed his arms. "To know why the fuck you acting like a hoe, 'cause I ain't jump on that dumb shit you was pushing." Dre chuckled dryly. "A hoe? Me? Nigga, please. You tell me, you mad 'cause I'm doing shit different? Thought you'd be proud of me, but instead you acting funny." Dre's jaw clenched. "It ain't about that." "Then what the fuck is it?" Dre exhaled, rubbing his hand over his face. He hesitated, then finally muttered, "I just ain't trying to do this shit alone, man." Duane frowned. "What?" Dre sighed, shaking his head. "You leveling up, doing shit the right way. And I respect it. I do. But nigga, we was in this grind together. I look up, and you out. Now it's just me and this shit." Duane let that sink in. Dre wasn't mad at him. He was losing him. And that's when Duane realized his growth wasn't just about him and Janelle. It was about making sure his brother didn't get left behind. Duane sat down on the couch. "Listen, nigga, I ain't leaving you. I'm just trying to move right. And you can too." Dre scoffed. "Yeah, okay." "Nah, I'm dead ass," Duane said. "You don't have to do that bullshit. You got skills. You smart as hell. You just don't see yourself the way I do." Dre went quiet. Duane leaned forward. "I got an idea. You trust me?" Dre side-eyed him. "Nigga, I've been trusting you since we was stealing bikes." Duane smirked. "Then hear me out." That night, Duane and Dre sat for hours, putting together a plan, something legit, something they could own, because real niggas don't just leave their brothers behind. They pull them up too. And Dre? For the first time in a long time, he actually saw a future that didn't involve looking over his shoulder. When Duane got back to Janelle's place, she was waiting. "How'd it go?" she asked. Duane kissed her forehead. "We good." She searched his face, then nodded, smiling softly. "Good." Duane pulled her close. "Told you. Real ones don't stay down long." And that night, Janelle gave him a real one's reward. Real men don't let their people drown. Duane had Dre back in the fold, but this time, they were moving differently. No fast money, no bullshit. Just a real plan. But see, when a man tries to level up, the world don't just let him slide through easy. It throws everything at him to see if he really means that shit. And Duane, he was about to find out if he was truly ready to be the man he claimed to be. Dre pulled up to the shop the next afternoon, a notebook in hand. Duane smirked. "Nigga, you taking notes now?" Dre flipped him of, sitting down. "Shut up." You said we moving right, so I'ma do this shit for real. Duane nodded, proud of him. Aight, break it down. Dre flipped open the notebook. Barbershops make bread, but niggas sleep on what's around it. You ever peep how some of these spots got vending machines, shoe cleaning services, shit that keep people spending after the cut? Duane leaned in. You thinking we add some side hustle inside the shop? Dre nodded. Exactly. Passive income, nigga. We set it up once, and it keep making money without us pushing it every second. Duane grinned. That's what the fuck I'm talking about. They dapped up. The old them would have been scheming on some street shit. The new them? They were building something real. That night, Duane told Janelle about the plan. She was stretched out on his couch, sipping wine, listening carefully. When he finished, she smiled. I love this for you. Duane raised an eyebrow. For me? Janelle set her glass down and climbed into his lap, straddling him. For us. Duane felt that shit in his chest. Because when a woman sees her man building something real, something solid, her trust in him grows deeper. And when a good woman trusts you, she gives you parts of herself no other man has ever seen. That night, Janelle showed Duane exactly how much she believed in him. Everything was moving smooth. Too smooth. And that's when life threw the next test. The next morning, Duane was opening up the shop when a black Benz pulled up to the curb. A tall, well-dressed man stepped out. Duane didn't recognize him, but the energy was off. The man adjusted his suit. Duane, right? Duane crossed his arms. Who's asking? The man smirked. Name's Chris. I got a business proposition for you. Duane didn't like this already. I ain't interested. Chris chuckled. You don't even know what it is yet. Duane shook his head. Don't need to. If you gotta pull up like this instead of going through the front door, it ain't business I want. Chris tilted his head. Smart man, but be careful. Turning down the wrong offer can cost you. Duane's jaw clenched. This was a warning. And just like that, he realized his past wasn't fully done with him yet. That night, Duane didn't tell Janelle what happened. Not because he was keeping secrets, but because he needed to handle it first. Some men run from pressure. Some fold under it. But a real man, he stands 10 toes down and protects everything he's built. And Duane was ready for whatever came next. Duane wasn't stupid. That Chris dude wasn't just some random businessman. The way he pulled up, the way he talked, that was some underworld shit. And Duane, he had been done with that life. But see, the past don't like being left behind. It'll chase you, hunt you, and try to drag you back in. And Duane was about to find out just how hard it was to stay clean when dirty hands wanted to pull him back. Duane pulled up to Dre's spot the next day, knocking hard. Dre opened the door, already looking irritated. Nigga, why you knocking like you the police? Duane stepped inside. We got a problem. Dre frowned. What kind of problem? Some nigga named Chris came to me yesterday, talking about a business proposition. Dre's face changed real quick. Tall dude? Sharp suit? Duane nodded. Yeah. Dre exhaled, rubbing his hands over his face. Shit. Duane narrowed his eyes. You know him? Dre hesitated, then nodded. Not personally, but I know of him. Chris ain't no regular nigga. He's connected. Runs a lot of the money that moves through this city. Legit and not so legit. Duane clenched his jaw. And now he's at my shop, talking about opportunities? Dre sighed. That's 'cause word is out. You making moves, but you ain't got no big backing. Niggas like Chris, they see that as an opportunity. Duane shook his head. I don't need no backing, we good on our own. Dre looked at him sideways. You think he cares about that? And just like that, Duane knew this wasn't something he could just ignore. That night, Duane was quiet. Too quiet. Janelle curled up next to him on the couch, running her fingers along his arm. "Talk to me." Duane exhaled. "It's just some bullshit from my past trying to resurface." Janelle studied his face. "Do I need to be worried?" Duane looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman had been solid for him. She didn't deserve to be caught up in some street drama. "Nah," he said, kissing her forehead. "I got it." Janelle didn't push. But she also wasn't stupid. She knew when a man was carrying more weight than he wanted to admit. And something told her that this wasn't just going to go away. The next night, Duane was locking up the shop when Chris pulled up again this time, with 2 other men. Duane sighed. "Damn, you back already? Thought I made myself clear." Chris smirked. "You did, but I don't like taking no for an answer." Duane crossed his arms. "That's your problem then, not mine." Chris chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "See, I like you, Duane. You're smart, got hustle. But you're playing in a city where niggas like me decide who wins." Duane stepped forward, his voice low. "I already won, and I did it without you." Chris's smile faded. "That right?" Duane nodded. "That's right." Chris studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "All right." He adjusted his cufflinks. "If you want to make it hard, we'll make it hard." Duane's fists clenched. "That a threat?" Chris smirked. "Nah, just an observation." Then he and his men walked off like they had all the time in the world. And Duane? He knew this wasn't over. Duane sat in his car outside Janelle's place, his mind racing. If Chris really wanted to fuck with him, there were only 2 ways this could go. Either he folded or he fought back. And Duane? He wasn't the folding type, but he also wasn't stupid. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about 300, the shop, Janelle. If he was going to stand his ground, he had to be smart about it. Because men like Chris, they don't play fair. Duane wasn't the type to wait for problems to knock twice. Chris had made it clear this wasn't over. And Duane, he wasn't about to sit back and let some slick-talking nigga decide his future. So he did what real men do. He got ahead of the problem. First stop? Dre's crib. Duane knocked once before walking in. "We gotta move." Dre, half-dressed, blinked at him. "Nigga, what?" "Chris came back," Duane said. "He ain't backing off." Dre sighed. "I knew that slick motherfucker wouldn't." "Exactly," Duane said. "Which means we gotta make sure our shit is solid." Dre frowned. "You talking security?" Duane nodded. "More than that, we need people watching our backs, eyes in places we can't see." Dre rubbed his chin. "I might know somebody." Duane smirked. "Then make the call." Later that night, Duane finally told Janelle everything, not because he wanted to, because he owed it to her. She listened, arms crossed, expression unreadable. When he finished, she exhaled. "So what's the plan?" Duane raised an eyebrow. "You mean you not about to tell me to let this shit go?" Janelle tilted her head. "Do I look like I fuck with weak men?" Duane grinned. "Nah, you don't." Janelle stepped closer. "Then handle it. Just don't let this shit take you away from what we're building." Duane pulled her close. "Never that." And just like that, he knew Janelle was all in. The next day, Dre's contact came through a guy named Rico, a dude who'd been around the game long enough to know how to move. "You want this nigga off your back?" Rico asked. "Then you gotta make him not want to fuck with you." Duane leaned in. "How?" Rico smirked. "Show him you ain't prey." Duane thought about that. Then he made a decision. Chris thought he had control. Time to show him otherwise. That night, Duane pulled up unannounced to one of Chris's spots. a fancy-ass lounge uptown. He walked in like he belonged there. Chris was at a table, sipping whiskey, surrounded by his people. Duane walked straight up. "We need to talk." Chris looked amused. "You got some balls, Duane." Duane smirked. "You ain't the first nigga to tell me that?" Chris waved his people off. "All right. Talk." Duane sat down. "You think I'm just some barbershop nigga, easy to push around?" Chris chuckled. "Aren't you?" Duane leaned forward. "I was. But I'm also a nigga who don't scare easy. So if you trying to bring smoke to my doorstep, just know you ain't walking away clean." Chris studied him, then laughed. "I like wow." "I don't give a fuck," Duane said. "This ain't about liking me. LT's about leaving me alone." Chris swirled his drink. "And if L don't," Duane smirked, "then you'll see why fucking with me was the worst business decision you ever made." A long silence. Then Chris nodded. "All right, you win this one." Duane stood. "Damn right, I do." And with that, he walked out. Because real men don't wait for permission to take what's theirs. Later that night, Janelle slid into bed beside Duane, wrapping her arms around him. "You good?" she murmured. Duane kissed her forehead. "Better than I've ever been." She smiled. "I like seeing you like this." Duane ran his hand down her back. "Like what?" Janelle lifted her head, looking into his eyes. At peace. And for a moment, Duane just looked at her. Because she was right. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't running from something. He wasn't looking over his shoulder. He was just living. And Janelle? She had been solid through it all. Duane pulled her closer. "I appreciate you, Janelle. More than I probably say." Janelle smirked. "I know." Duane chuckled. "Damn you cocky." Janelle kissed him slow. "I'm right." And when she kissed him like that, Duane knew exactly where the night was headed, because when a woman feels secure, she shows it. Duane had been through it. From the streets to the struggle, from losing himself to finding himself, he had lived it. But the real test? It wasn't just about making money or staying out of drama. It was about being a man Janelle could thrive with. And for the first time in his life, he understood what that really meant. Janelle wasn't asking for the world. She just wanted consistency, effort. A man who saw her, not just when things were good, but when she needed to be held up too. So Duane started showing up differently. He paid attention. When she was quiet, he asked why. When she was stressed, he made time. Not just with words, but with action. One night she came home looking drained. Long day. Work stress. She dropped her purse by the door and sighed. Duane didn't say nothing at first. He just walked up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and kissed the back of her neck. "You straight?" he murmured. Janelle melted into him. "I am now." See, a woman don't always need a man to fix shit. Sometimes she just needs to know she don't have to carry it alone. And when she feels safe in a man's presence, she flourishes. That night, they laid in bed, skin to skin. Janelle traced patterns on his chest. "You know what's different about you now?" Duane smirked. "What's that?" She looked up at him. "You make me feel secure." Duane tilted his head. "You ain't feel like that before?" Janelle hesitated. "Not like this." Duane frowned. "Damn." She ran her fingers over his beard. "It ain't that you were bad to me. But before, it felt like I had to fight to be heard sometimes." Duane exhaled. He knew that was true. Janelle kissed his shoulder. "But now, I don't have to ask to be prioritized. You just do it." And that right there, that's what changed everything. Because a good woman's desire is deeply tied to her emotional security. She don't crave intimacy when she feels ignored. She don't stay passionate when she feels like an afterthought. And Duane finally understood that. He kissed her slow, deep, hands roaming. And Janelle, she pulled him closer. Because when a woman feels loved, she gives it back tenfold. Months passed. The business was thriving. Their bond was solid. One night, Duane sat on the couch, watching Janelle dance around the kitchen, singing off-key to some old R&B. She caught him staring and laughed. "What?" Duane smirked. "You happy?" Janelle walked over, straddled his lap, and looked him dead in the eyes. "More than I ever been." Duane nodded. That's all he needed to hear. See? When a man truly learns how to love a woman, she don't just exist beside him, she thrives through him. And Duane? He had finally become the man who understood that. That's it. Duane learned the lesson most men don't get till it's too late. A real woman don't just want love. She wants security, effort, and consistency. And when a man gives that, she gives him the world.